On today's program, we survive the eclipse. Owen eats a hot dog. Don't call Erica Enders the winningest woman in motorsports. And is bigger really better? Welcome to Speed Talk Live, which really isn't live, but a poorly produced podcast, where we talk about NASCAR and all things racing. And occasionally, we have a special guest or two, when we can get them to show up. Sit down, strap in, hold on tight. Speed Talk Live is on the air.
Green flag, green, go, go.
All right, welcome everybody. Guess what? We survived the eclipse. The world didn't come to an end. We'll talk about that in a minute and a whole bunch more. I'm excited to bring in Owen Johnson, Associate Editor, CupScene.com. Hello, Owen. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Greg. I'm great. How about you?
Good. We had the eclipse yesterday here in Orlando. It was about 60%. It was still pretty cool. We didn't have the totality. What I thought was cool is Indianapolis Motor Speedway played off on it. Really had a big event there yesterday. Several of the leading nationwide networks were there broadcasting. They had the guy from the Weather Channel there, and you got something going on when you got that. So good for them. I thought it turned out great for them. Now you're up in Virginia. How was the eclipse for you?
I think we got a little bit more totality than you, but still just a little bit of darkness. Not crazy like Indy got. But I think, like you said, I think they did a really great job with that event. They had Indy cars on the track, so IndyCar got some coverage for it. And I know I saw the Weather Channel guy poured some milk on himself, just like the winning driver does at the Indy 500. So yes. They got some IndyCar influence in it.
Yeah, bravo to them. And I'll tell you what, I thought the eclipse was being kind of hyped up. And yesterday I watched it here in Orlando and got a really cool, just like, wow, this is really cool. And I saw how it brought a lot of people across the country together. And I'll tell you, that was the cool part to me, was just seeing the unity, because we don't have enough of that in this country. So it was good to see that coming together and all the people coming together as one and enjoying the clips. And some people getting emotional, and that's fine. I'm sure if I was under a total eclipse, and I've been on one many, many years ago, that would have been me as well. So now, was this the first time you can remember seeing an eclipse? Because I know for the last one you were a little younger.
We had one back in 2017, but yeah, I don't remember that one too much. This was the first time I remember heading out to the backyard with my parents, just watching the eclipse.
So here we go. That was your first time. There was another first time, and that was your first visit. How'd you like my segue there? Your first visit to Martinsville Speedway, and I want to get into that, and I want to get in and talk about your impressions and everything. But this is the part of the show normally where we talk about the race and we get some feedback and we talk to drivers. We didn't need that this weekend because we had Owen Johnson on the ground. Here is his report directly after the race, wrapping up the race at Martinsville.
It's Sunday evening here at Martinsville. We just had the Cup Series race. William Byron won it. A really special win for him, but also for his team. It's Hendrick Motorsports' 40th anniversary. This is the track they won. They got their first win at. We've also got a complicated history at this. They had a tragedy 2 decades ago, so it's a really meaningful track for this team. And they managed not only to win, but to score a 1-2-3 with Kyle Larson second, Chase Elliott third. Wasn't easy. They had to survive an overtime restart. Byron himself started about 18th, had to drive his way through the field. He did that in a stage 3 that was almost entirely a green flag run. There was not a lot of cautions, sort of what we come to expect on these short tracks. Martinsville, Richmond, they haven't been very caution heavy. Next-gen cars turned into more strategy races, and it did turn into a bit of a strategy affair. The Hendrick cars chose to pit at the right time, and they passed Denny Hamlin on the track to take the lead. Held on through the overtime restart when John Hunter Nemechek had a brake problem. Sent a tire down, a bit of fire, put him behind the wall, under caution for about 15 laps there. Big win for Hendrick. They had about 1,500 employees here, all dressed in red, supporting the ruby red paint schemes they were wearing for the Ruby anniversary. Painting Martinsville ruby red. A couple of thoughts about the race. Obviously, not a lot of cautions. That's what we've come to expect on short tracks. Also, not a lot of tire wear that came into effect. The cars all had about the same equal tire wear. It was way more about track position than tires here. Joey Logano was able to almost win stage 2 by not even pitting for his left side tires. He pitted for 2 tires, led almost all of stage 2, ended up 5th. He came in 6th, so it was a net gain of 1 position. But it showed just how important track position is. When it came to the overtime restart, only 1 leader came in. It was Denny Hamlin. He came out 10th, ended up 11th, didn't even gain any positions, lost 1 getting the new tires. So tires are nothing. It's all about track position here. About overall with stage 1, it was about 85 laps. There was about 1 second slower by the end of that stage. So about a second wear, but they were all wearing at about equal pace. One more thing, big conversation this week has been the restarts after Richmond. Denny Hamlin obviously went early, maybe jumped the restart. This week, it looked like the game came not in jumping the restart, but in going a little bit late, still in the box, but Joey Logano waited, delayed. Kyle Larson was to his outside, and he confused Larson. Larson spun his tires, did not expect Joey to go that late, and Logano got the jump into turn 1 when he was trying to save his tires in that stage 2 start. So restarts are always going to be a game. Doesn't matter how you change the restart box. That's something to keep in mind. Good race. Hope you enjoyed it. For more on my coverage, talking about, for instance, the new Ford Mustang and what drivers think about that, and the new short track package here. Obviously, they didn't play in too much. Probably saw the same racing we've seen with the next gen. But the drivers told me they didn't expect much change given that Martinsville's such a short track. Visit cupscene.com. I'm Owen Johnson.
So your assignment this weekend, not only is to have fun and enjoy one of the best tracks in America, but you're going to be eating a Martinsville hot dog. You'll owe us a feature story on the Martinsville hot dog.
All right, Greg, I'll give it a shot. It's a busy Saturday here at Martinsville Speedway. We have Cup qualifying, Cup practice, then we have the Xfinity race, so I need to fuel up for lunch. I've got the famous Martinsville hot dog, just $2. See, my first time having it. Let's see my first impressions. Big thing, it is red. That's not a color I would have expected for the hot dog, but give it a shot nonetheless. For $2, you're not getting much for $2 in London for a hot dog, so I'm already predisposed to like it. Let's see what happens. Not bad. Now we gotta say, it doesn't taste that much different from what you're gonna get at any other track, but for $2, it's a better deal than anything else. So I'm gonna fuel up for the day, get some good coverage, and follow along at cupscene.com. I thought that was pretty good, but apparently it wasn't good enough, so I had to try it all over again. Alright, the Cup Series is qualifying out on track behind me. I'm practicing, just about to qualify. I just spoke to a couple drivers in the media center. I'll have more coverage for you shortly, but I was told that my lunch, my hot dog, wasn't quite good enough, so I've got mine. This is all the way, all the toppings, still $2, still great value. Let's see, a few here. There's a lot in that. I think you were right. Everyone who said that this needs to go all the way. This is a little bit better. I'm going to stick with this. Have it more later this week. I'm sure I'll have plenty more. Right now, I'm going to grab a jacket, get back in, finish coverage, and see who gets on the pole. With my full review done, we spoke to a couple of drivers in the media center for their thoughts on the famous hot dog. Tyler, I have to ask, have you had a hot dog yet this weekend?
No, sir. I've had a couple in my life. I haven't had any in the last probably 4 or 5 years, though, if that answers the question.
When you did get it, did you get it all the way?
No, I'm a picky plain eater. So, like, I'm a ketchup and cheese only kind of guy on everything. Not on a hot dog, but I'm just giving you the example. So, if you're like relish, onions, mustard, I don't eat any of that stuff. So, yeah, I'm a plain Jane eater.
How about your kids? Have they tried it?
Nope. I don't think any of my kids have had it.
Probably smart. Austin, where do you stand on the hot dogs here?
On the hot dogs here, I question the origin.
In what way?
What do you mean?
The color, the toppings?
Yeah, they're bright. They're as red as this room, dog. Like, I mean, that's unnatural.
Have you tried one?
Yeah.
What did you think?
It tastes like a hot dog. It's just a hot dog, but it's a Martinsville hot dog, which makes it cool.
Do you get it all the way?
What?
With all the toppings?
No. You got plain, just a plain hot dog, nothing else. Am I the only one who thought he asked that question really strange?
For cupscene.com, mission complete.
So I'm very well used to the Martinsville hot dog now, and I can say it's a solid hot dog, nothing special, but the price definitely is.
If they had a Purple Heart for Martinsville hot dogs, you could wear it proudly along your chest there, my young friend. Yeah, and I agree with you. The $2 is the big thing, because let's face it, it's basically a hot dog they inject some red food coloring in, and they put some good toppings on there. But for $2, you can't get that at a NASCAR track. So I think that's the big allure, and the fact that everybody talks about it, the fact that the stand has been there forever, the small hot dog stand there. So. And you're right, when they in the media, and for those who don't know, tracks will normally provide us lunch and dinner, sometimes a breakfast, and you can guarantee yourself that when you go to Martinsville, your lunch will be the Martinsville hot dog. And I'm so cheap that no matter what they feed me, even if I don't normally eat it, I'm going to eat it because it's free. So there you go. You had the Martinsville hot dog. You gave us some great coverage. You have really hustled all weekend. And you even got a chance to talk to Dale Earnhardt Jr. right after the Xfinity race.
What does the performance overall tonight mean for you with the team?
We're happy. Good cars, a little bit better than we were here last time. I know we won last time, but a little more speed, I thought, a little more competitiveness. Gibbs boys are fast. They're always going to be quick everywhere you go. But I felt better about our stuff.
So what was it like covering that race? Because that press box up there at Martinsville is one of my most favorite press boxes in the world.
Yeah, it's right up in turn one, so you get a really great view of the track. You can see right down all the sight lines, and you can just see all of the action. Some of the bigger tracks, it's hard to figure out who to keep your eye on when you're covering it. Martinsville, the action's always in your periphery, and the Xfinity race, the Cup race, a little bit less passing. I think we'll get into that in a minute. But the Xfinity race, there were battles all throughout the track. There was bumping and banging throughout, to the point they got a little bit criticized. We'll get to that too, but you could see it all from the press box.
And and Hendrick in their 40th anniversary, coming back to the track where they started it all, the first win in 1984, where they almost fell apart, and Jeff Bodine. So they celebrated that this weekend. Mr. Hendrick himself was not there this weekend. Come to find out, he had some knee surgery, had knee replacement surgery. The 74-year-old did. And he started, come to find out, it started giving him trouble in Daytona. And then he went to the Concierge there in Amelia Island and had some difficulty and just couldn't make it to Martinsville. He was supposed to drive the pace car. But to his credit, to Hendrick Motorsports' credit, to NASCAR's credit, they made him available to some of us on Monday. We had a scrum. And, Martinsville, Hendrick has built his legacy there because he's from Virginia, and Martinsville was the first track he's ever went to as a kid. He remembers that. There was a track record, and now that the team has 29 victories there. And it's where he scored, like we said, the first of his 305 wins. And just like he wasn't there for the day of the 1980, when he won in 1984, he wasn't there for that first win. And also the awful day, obviously 20 years ago, when his son, his brother, twin nieces, and key executives were among 10 people killed in a plane crash on the way to the October's races. So he makes the annual trip each spring. He doesn't go to the October race, but he knew, they put a great deal of effort into the 40th anniversary celebration. And again, he was disappointed he couldn't be there. He watched with his wife and daughter and some other folks at home. And he has roots there, like I said, being a native of Virginia. But it's a complicated relationship at Martinsville. And this is what he told us on Monday.
Well, I guess the one of the main things is I grew up not far from there. And so I went up. That was the first race I went to, a NASCAR race. And just it's kind of our home track when I was living in Virginia, and we've always run pretty good there. And then when we got on a streak with Jeff and Jimmy, and so track's been good to us. Of course, the crash that took so many of our people makes it hard to go back, up there. But you can't blame the track for what happened at the airport, So, I can go to spring race, okay, fall race, no, but it's but still, that's just been a home track, and I remember the modified races there and going up there with my dad and Frank Edwards, who they interviewed on the race yesterday, that actually helped build my dad. Now I built my first car when I was 15. He was there yesterday, and he was on the original team. He was on the team there when we won that race. So I didn't know he was going to be there until they introduced him on TV. But it's just been a special place.
So kudos to the whole team. Of course, we had some people on social media talking about it was too scripted. Yeah, well, go to heck. Bigfoot doesn't exist and the world isn't flat. We proved that with the eclipse the other day. So it was just a great effort, and it just shows the dominance they have. They've got the place figured out. So good for them. And Owen, I am so glad you got to go. And of course, the big question: when are you heading back to England?
Heading back soon. We have to get our exams in for the end of the year, so we'll be back over there, back across the pond in a minute. But enjoyed my trip home. It was great to get up to Martinsville.
And we'll hopefully maybe we'll get together in the fall there. I don't know when your fall break is, but look forward to that. Let's see what other races we can get you to. I will be at the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro next month. But let's turn our attention to some other racing now, because NASCAR is not the only kid on the block. Yeah, we talk about it, but I've also I've covered some races in the NHRA. I've covered some races in Formula One and IndyCar. So I got to talk to one of my favorite racers in the entire world this week. I've been a fan of hers for years. We interacted on a couple of occasions when I was a stringer for ESPN and a stringer for the Tampa Bay Tribune, covering the Gainesville Gator Nationals. NHRA has some great racing, some great events. I got a chance to spend a little time with six-time NHRA champion Erica Enders. All right, we are talking to one of my favorite, not only just people, but racers in the world. A longtime fan I have been of this NHRA racer, Erica Enders. Hi, Erica. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We were just talking. You're in Phoenix, getting ready for the weekend. This will be next week. So, you always, because I don't cover the NHRA, I can kind of take it from a fan standpoint. And I've been such a huge fan of yours for years that anytime you're doing well, the qualifying rounds, and I see you up there and it's like, yep, Erica's got this in the bag. And usually it's true. You have won so many races, but I wanted to talk today about a couple things. The NHRA has grown in popularity over the years, especially in the last couple of years. I think, coming out of COVID, they did really well. You have been doing this. This is incredible to me. You have been doing this since you were 8 years old.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's forever. So let me ask you this. Talk about the growth of the sport from your vantage point since you've been a part of it.
Oh, man. I mean, before I started junior drag racing when I was 8 years old, I grew up at the track watching my dad race. So I've been a part of drag racing my entire life, literally. But the coolest aspect of it for me would probably have to be like the amazing platform that NHRA provides for, like in Gainesville, for instance, all 4 pro winners were former junior dragster drivers. They got their start in drag racing because of the Junior Drag Racing League. And I think that's why you see so many of the younger guns racing professionally now, and then women as well. So I think it's really awesome. And yes, the sport has grown. It has the largest sanctioning body. I am stoked to be a part of it. It obviously runs in our blood for many generations, but certainly means a lot to me.
When I was talking to Glenn Cromwell a couple of weeks ago, F1 has their Drives to Survive. Netflix, the Netflix Drive to Survive, and then you've got NASCAR did their show, right? Well, and something I remembered because even though I'm old, I don't remember too much, but I do remember this, the 2003 movie, the Disney movie, Right on Track. And it was about you and your sister. And don't tell your sister, but I've had a crush on her for a couple years. But it's in all seriousness, that movie came out. So, I mean, you guys have been kind of doing that long before it was cool with F1 and Netflix. And Glenn talked about they're in this kind of discussions to do something similar. What about doing a remake of something like Right on Track or something like that? I know Flow Sports did something last year, but would you be all in on trying to do maybe a remake what was geared more towards reality and where you had not an actor playing you, but doing you and maybe the focus is on what you go through?
Yeah, I'd probably be up for it. We have quite a cast of characters here at Elite Motorsports, and I think it would absolutely sell itself because we have a ton of fun on the road together. But on the heels of the Disney movie, that chronicled all of the Junior Jag Racing League, and then my first year moving to a big car in Super Comp and Super Gas. Then we did, it was called Racing in Red, and it went to some film festivals and stuff, but it chronicled our first year together here at Elite, where we won the World Championship in 2014. And then the Flow deal that you just mentioned was called Speed Queens, and you can still get it on the Flow Sports app, which is kind of gives you an inside look at what goes on here week in and week out racing. So those are the three things that we've done so far. But yeah, I would absolutely be game. I think it would be cool to shed a light on exactly what it takes. And I feel like a lot of people don't really have a clue what all goes into it, because from the outside, if you don't know a ton about drag racing, I mean, like, how hard can it be to drive a quarter of a mile in a straight line and go really fast? But there's a ton that goes into it on the business side. Obviously, I've got 56 guys on the road full time now. And then what goes on in the cockpit, having to leave with a clutch and running a 5-speed Liberty, having to shift 4 times. So it's pretty crucial to be as perfect as possible. And I would absolutely love to shed a light on all of that.
And I'll tell you this, I get annoyed when I see something on TV. Like I see a trailer, right? On TV and go, well, that looks like a fantastic show. That looks like a great show. Now on, Max Plus, which I don't have. So it's like, I'm going to shell out money for another streaming service. But I swear to God,
Yeah.
if NHRA did something like that and featured you guys, because I think you're right. I think one of the things that fans don't, or people who see this sport, and it's kind of like in NASCAR when they just go around in circles, but when they really see everything that goes on in that, it is not easy. And I think in the whole world of stock cars, right? When we talk about NASCAR and stock cars, I don't think there is a stock cars as you guys in the pro stock division of NHRA. I think it's the closest to a genuine stock car you see on a racetrack. Because they got funny cars, they're great, and you've got the top fuel, and those are great. But to me, the thing about the stock cars, the pro stock division, is how close they are to actual stock cars and actual street cars, even though you've got all the safety and the speed and all that. And watching, I wish somebody could see the inside of that when you make a run, because you're right. You're not just sitting there and pointing that thing straight down the track. You got a lot going
No.
on, man. And the fact that, you mentioned your championship, you got 6 of those. Okay.
We do.
You are the winningest woman in motorsports and driving a pro stock, which I think is one of the toughest things to wheel in the world. Not to take anything away from my friends at NASCAR, but to do what you do, and to see that and to watch a run is incredible. And that's I think it's just one of the coolest things for me in the world to see. And the pro stock division is one of the toughest. And the fact that you are the winningest woman in motorsports, I think is just incredible. But let me kind of pivot that, because I don't like to, when we talk about diversity in different things, I'm all for it. Everybody should be on an equal playing field. I don't care the color of your skin, your background, whatever. I'm all for that. But on the other hand, I don't always want the focus to be on the fact that you're a woman and because you are a hell of a driver. I don't care. And I think sometimes we kind of forget that. But but diversity, it's an issue. And Glenn said there's not really a diversity program in the NHRA. And do you agree with that they don't really need a diversity program, or do you think there's still some room to grow in that area?
I mean, absolutely, there's room to grow, but I don't think we need a diversity program. We're plenty diverse. We have the most professional females out here. It's not. I hate talking about that crap because it hurts so many people's feelings and it can be misconstrued or whatever. But like, I'm a girl, so I can say that. But like, we've got Antron Brown and we've got Cruz Pedregon. And I mean, you go down the list and we have pretty much every base covered, whether you want to talk about gender or race or religion or. So we have plenty of it. And I was around at the beginning of that Drive for Diversity program. One of the girls I went to college with was part of that program, to kind of a feeder class, whatever one of those classes is below NASCAR, and just kind of trying to get more women into the sport. And that was the diversity program that they put in place. But I think NHRA is diverse. Do we have room to grow? Absolutely. I feel like there's a handful of people that are doing a lot of things to make sure that continues. Antron Brown just established a new program. The Maynard family has a program that they have different drivers from junior drag racing to the Lucas Oil Series. They have a couple of drivers that they picked from there to get behind and try to like expedite their process into the pro ranks, if you will. So there are things that people are doing to help, but I think that's where NHRA is very lucky.
Do you think in the NHRA that there's still barriers? Do you think there's room do you think there's any more glass ceilings to be broken in the sport?
I mean, most of the firsts are gone, right? I think that they only lack a female funny car world champion. Angel did it in bikes. I've done it in pro stock. Shirley Muldowney and Brittany Force have done it in Top Fuel. So there's only 4 professional female world champions ever in the history of NHRA motorsports. So I think there's definitely room to grow, but I forgot what you asked me. I'm sorry.
Do you think there's any more glass ceilings to be broken?
Oh, glass ceilings. Yeah, I mean, we've all accomplished the first. That's what I was saying. And we busted through the glass ceilings. I don't know if there are any left, but I just watched the new Shirley Muldowney documentary, which I was fortunate enough to be a part of a couple weeks ago. It came out on FS1, and to see what she went through in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when it wasn't necessarily okay for women to do what men did. And they gave her hell. They were so mean to her. They spit at her. They threw things at her. They did everything they could to get her gone. And she persevered. And I think all of the ladies, I'll speak for us, are thankful that she did what she did, because we're able to do what we do now. Having said that, it is not a clean, clear path by any means. There are still plenty of chauvinistic, ignorant people out there. But it's not something like you mentioned. We don't really like to focus on that. Like, we get to go toe to toe with everybody, despite your race, despite your gender, and may the best man, woman, whatever win. And that's what I love so much about it, because like, for instance, Greg Anderson, right? To be the best, you have to beat the best. And for the longest time, he was the best. And right now we are. And we did that without any of that at the forefront of our mind. And I think if you are concentrating on those things, you're limiting yourself. So I don't want to be the winningest. I'm thankful I am the winningest woman in motorsports. I want to be the baddest ass driver there ever freaking was. And that's my goal. And I think that a lot of the other ladies will tell you the same thing. We don't want to, like, a lot of the first questions you get are, well, what's it like to be a girl race car driver? I don't know. I mean, it's all I know. So it's kind of a double-edged sword to talk about it and to be about it. But at the end of the day, I'm just a NHRA Pro Stock driver that wants to be a world champion as many times as I can.
And that's why I wanted to focus on that. It's not necessarily, because I've often thought that I've seen it in NASCAR where you've got some drivers who happen to be women, right? And they don't, the gender to them is secondary. I want to go race cars. Unfortunately, I've seen some women who are trying to be drivers, and they don't necessarily have the talent to be on track. And I think that hurts the whole effort overall, right? And we haven't seen that. You know, when you look at NASCAR, and I know you don't have a lot of time to watch everything else that's going on, but NASCAR, we've got the representation from the African American community. Bubba Wallace, great guy, won races. Raja Caruth just won races, and I got to hang out with him. He's a great guy. Do you think that looking at that, and you know, you've been a drag racer all your life because that's what your dad did, but do you think that you would have had the same opportunities if you would have chosen another motorsport?
Another motorsport? Well, I'll go back to talking about the platform that NHRA provides. There are so many feeder classes for NASCAR, and I'm not knowledgeable about it, so I'm not going to talk much about it, but I do know in drag racing, like, you have the Junior Drag Racing League, and then you have the Lucas Oil Series, and those Lucas Oil drivers are at every single national event that the pros are at, competing on the same track, in the same conditions, in front of the same TV cameras and fans. So I think it provides a good platform to excel. Whereas, you know, you might aside, I don't even know how to say the Busch Series, but like aside from that, racing on the track that NASCAR races on the night before, like, well, they might be at a different location, and they might, you know, it's all very different. And that's what's so beneficial about NHRA. So I don't really know a lot about it, but
yeah, and that's tough. I didn't mean to like spring that on you because it's tough, right? Drag racing's all you've ever known, and that's where you've developed your talent. It frustrates me to see that NASCAR is trying their diversity efforts, and I really think they're genuine, and they're trying, and they're just not getting the kind of thing. But I think you're right. I think if they offered a better platform, maybe whether we have the Xfinity series or the truck series and seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I hear from people in NASCAR, I tell them, go look at the NHRA, you know, because gender doesn't matter over there. You're going to be, you know, once the helmet comes on, man, that's it. So, you know, so let's pivot to this, because I'm like you. I don't like to talk about the fact, you know, you're a great racer.
But it's cool, and it's something, I mean, it's something that should be talked about, right? And the more we talk about it, and the more people that we have that strive to be in those positions, the better off that we're all going to be. But it's not going to be like going, you know, down pit row and being like, oh man, you're really pretty, you probably look good in a fire suit, let's stick you in a race car. Probably not the best recipe for success, but at the same time, that's a lot of people are doing that. So it's very different. So
I want the world to change that. You know what I'm saying? I want the world to I want this objectification to stop. You know, and like you said, oh, you look good enough. You know, I bet you look good enough. No, I don't care about that. And it looks like when we got rid of the Sprint Cup girls here in NASCAR, you know, the trophy. I don't like that at all. But hey, let's focus on something else here, because I want people to come see an NHRA race. If they're a motorsports fan, 200-mile-an-hour stock cars in you know, few seconds, watching those things pedal down the track, and it doesn't just point itself and go straight. It's a lot of hard work. 300 miles an hour in the funny car and the top fuel. What would you tell people who've never seen an NHRA race? What's the experience for them like in person?
there are so many great things about our sport. This is just my opinion, so don't get me in trouble, but I don't think our sport is a great TV sport, because of it's just an absolute sensory overload. When you come here and you sit in the stands or stand on the starting line when a nitro funny car is firing up, right? The nitro methane makes you cry. They have 11,000 horsepower. They're like rumble your organs on the inside, right? And they stomp on the throttle, and it's just like, oh my God, you have to plug your ears unless you want to bust your eardrums. So you're crying, your smell, your sight, everything's vibrating. So like, I feel like you have to be here to experience the awesomeness of our sport. Also, every ticket's a pit pass. Like, I've been to my fair share of NASCAR races, which I think is extremely impressive, and our sport can learn a lot from them. But you have to have like presidential security clearance to get hot passes or to get on a pit box. Well, when you buy a ticket here at NHRA Drag Race, it is a pit pass. You can come to the back of our pit, watch us work on our race cars, get autographs and pictures with all of the drivers. So you are like front row seat or in the locker room at any stick and ball sport. So I think that's what's so awesome about drag racing. And at a lot of the tracks, kids 12 and under get in free. So it's a really great family experience. So if you haven't done it, I challenge you to do it. And I promise you will be hooked.
And I agree with you. I remember going to the Gator Nationals to cover it for ESPN and standing on the starting line, and somebody grabbed me, and I want to say it was I forget who it was, but he grabbed me, come stand here. And I had ear protection in. And let me tell you something. I spent 23 years in the Army. I've had mortars thrown at me that didn't scare me as much as the first time a top fuel car launched off the flipping line. I really
That's accurate.
Yeah, yeah. And I want people to see that, and I want people to come out and experience that. You brought up a good point. You're right. It's hard to do a TV broadcast of NHRA because you've got so much going on in between. And I want people to come out and see it. And I want people to come out and see it, not just because it's great racing and there's great pit, the pit access and everything. My kids, I took them to the Gator Nationals and they had nitro and eggs, and nobody understands that unless you've been there, where you're eating breakfast and your eyes are stinging and burning from the nitro. I mean, I want them to come experience that. But at the end of the day, they're also going to see the most level playing field in motorsports. They're going to see women competing against men, African Americans competing against women. You've got the Hispanic representation. It is the most level playing field in motorsports, and that's why I want people to come out and see it and feel it and experience it. And besides the fact that it's a hell of a lot cheaper than most of these NASCAR races.
It really is. It's very affordable, and as I mentioned, it's super fun, great family experience. And you just name a handful of like the top teams out here. There are so many great stories, and I'll start in-house here at Elite. Like, we have the Quadra family. They're from Leon, Mexico. They fly in every week to the United States to compete in these NHRA drag races. Their family owns Corral Boots and Quadra. So I'm sure if you're into Western wear, you've heard of them, but what a cool family story. Steve Torrance, one of my best friends in the whole world. He's a multi-time world champion in Top Fuel. He was given 6 months to live when we were 16 years old, and now we're 40-ish, and he's got a family. And it's just like all of these really cool stories, the Coletta story, the Schumacher story. And so it's really neat. You don't just have to be a fan of one person. There are so many great experiences out here. So I challenge you to, if you haven't been, to come, because as you know, it's a lot of fun.
I want people to come, and that's the thing. Let's wrap up with this. John Force, and this is another thing when you talk about diversity. John Force is like 104 years old. I mean, the guy's ancient. I love the man to death, but it also proves that age is really no barrier there. So let me ask you this: how long do you have an end game? Does Erica Enders have an end game? How long are you going to race?
I guess my favorite answer would be as long as I can. You mentioned John Force. He's 74-ish years old. He's in the finals from Pomona, by the way, that we're completing this weekend. I'm in the finals against Dallas Glenn. I'm a girl. He's an older gentleman. Like, you can go on for as long as you want. Of course, your reflexes are probably going to slow down as you age and things change and whatever. The only stopping point for me would be like, and I know this sounds not great, but I've always wanted a family, and I'm getting older. So that would be the only reason that I would pause. I think I would always find my way back, but I'm about timed out. So you might just see me till I'm 74 now. So who knows?
So Erica Enders, she did not win this weekend. I told her that we would be, because that interview was last week. She did win the challenge, which is for the people that come in that like the week before come in second in the finals. And if I screw it up, I'm sorry. She'll probably kill me. But she did win that on Saturday. She didn't win the nationals, but when the Winter Nationals, which they held, had been rain delayed from Pomona. They raced those on Saturday. She didn't win that. And then Sunday they had the Arizona Nationals. She didn't win that either. But you know what? It's still early in their season, and she's got a lot more chances to win, and she certainly will. And I could see easily a 7th championship on her. I'm going to have an article that I talked to Glenn Cromwell, who's the president of the NHRA. That article will be tied into what you just heard. And the focus is going to be on diversity, because if you look at the NHRA versus NASCAR in terms of diversity program, NASCAR has a big diversity program, the Drive for Diversity. They have graduates. Kyle Larson Raja Caruth, different people, and they really strive for diversity. Well, the NHRA doesn't have a diversity program. And as Erica touched on in our interview, she doesn't really like to talk about gender. She will, and she'll defend it. But the NHRA is one of the most diverse racing programs in the world. And I would put them up against anybody. If you look at the NASCAR Drive for Diversity, their heart's in it. They're really trying their best. I think they still have a long way to go. They're heading in the right direction. But like Erica said, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, women, or Hispanic, America. It doesn't matter. Everybody is on the same playing field over at the NHRA. I would love to see that in NASCAR someday. And think about it. You talk about Rick Hendrick not being there at Martinsville this weekend. He's 74 years old. Well, 74-year-old John Force won the Winter Nationals that they redid on Saturday in Phoenix. 74 years old, the dude's still winning. What would you think, Owen, if you saw a guy that was 74 years old out winning a NASCAR Cup Series race?
I mean, we're getting drivers retiring in their early 40s at this point. That would be incredible for NASCAR. I did not realize that's really impressive. That's all I can say.
And I think one thing NASCAR's lacking, we've got Raja Caruth, we've got Bubba Wallace, we've got Daniel Suarez, another graduate of the Drive for Diversity program. We don't have a good female driver in NASCAR. And I would love to get to the point where, like Erica said, where it doesn't matter about gender. Let me clarify something here before we get too far ahead in this. When I'm talking about women in NASCAR, I am referring to the NASCAR Cup Series, not the Xfinity Series, not the Truck Series. I'm specifically referring in this conversation to the NASCAR Cup Series. And it's like I told her, I know there are women who have raced who are there's some who are race car drivers who happen to be women and others who are trying to be women race car drivers. And we've had a couple of both in this series. The last person we had was Danica Patrick, and she was a race car driver who happened to be a woman. I don't count her among the others. She had the talent. She certainly had the talent to be in the sport. I'm sorry it didn't work out for her. I would love to see somebody like that. More than one, more than two. Let's have 3 or 4. I think it would be great to get, because the parity's coming together with the next gen car. I would like to see another female or 2 or 3 or 4. That's the only thing we're lacking. And again, it's not because it's not NASCAR's fault. They're really trying. And I hope we see that really soon in the sport. And I know it's hard for you, Owen, because you're a young guy, right? And your whole life has been about equity and diversity and all of that. And I can remember the days when it wasn't, right? And now to see how far we've come has been fantastic, and see how far we still have to go is also a little disconcerting, because I certainly want everybody to be welcomed in the sport, whether you're a fan or whether you're sitting behind the wheel. And I don't know, do you have on your radar, Owen, do you have a female driver you think you would like to see in the sport?
Well, I know a female driver in the sport who I think has a lot of talent, and that's Haley Deegan, who moved up to the 15 AM racing car this year in the Xfinity Series. I can't remember if she won or almost won an SRX event last year, impressing with guys like Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart in the field there. So we know she has the talent and just has to find the right car. Struggled in the Truck Series with Thor Sport, but the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, sometimes they're not always indicative of driver talent, with some of the drivers in the middle of the pack being very aggressive, taking some of the younger drivers out. We'll see. I think she has the talent. I just think she needs to find some of the results, and I think hopefully those will come together for her.
And I kind of put her in the mold of Danica Patrick. She's definitely a race car driver who happens to be a woman. And I agree with you. I think if she could find the right equipment, if she could find the right crew chief combination, the right team combination, she certainly could make a splash. And I hope she does, because I genuinely like her. I've met her a couple times, and she has that same kind of and people don't get this when you watch on TV. The thing when I first saw Danica Patrick, and I've told her this personally, the first time I saw Danica Patrick and I heard she was coming into the sport, I saw a picture of her in a bikini splayed out on a race car. And I thought, oh my God, what do we don't need that, because we've had, I don't want trophies, which is why, as I mentioned to Eric in the interview, I'm glad we got rid of the Sprint Cup girls. Nothing against them, but we don't need trophies. We don't need to be objectifying women. But, and that's what I thought about when I first saw Danica Patrick. When I first met her at an ARCA test and got to interview her, the determination in her eyes and her willingness to get out there and mix it up with everybody really impressed the hell out of me, to be quite honest. And I could see that it didn't matter to her that she was a female. It mattered to her that she was in a competitive car and that she could be out there and be racing. And it was a shame that it didn't work out for her. And I see that in the same kind of determination with Haley Deegan. And I really hope that we get, that she moves up. But I also hope we have somebody else out there that moves up through the ranks. And I didn't come prepared for any names, but I know there's some in the world of outlaws who are trying, and some of the late models. And let's see that. I would love to see that in the sport. And I would love to see that come to fruition, but we'll see. And what the future holds, and NASCAR's in the right place. It just got a little bit of work to do.
Just rant and rave like you do to the TV during sport.
All right, this week's rants. I know probably your rant, Owen, is probably you need some more hot dogs. But Denny Hamlin this week talked about that we need to fix the racing. And something he said, and I respect Denny Hamlin. I'm not a race car driver. It's certainly not a NASCAR driver. But one of the things he said this week was that kind of had me scratching my head. He said that there are drivers now who are only raced in next-gen cars, and they're going to become only next-gen drivers. And once they adapt to the next-gen car, they're never going to be good for anything else, to which I say the old-fashioned term poppycock. And the reason I say that is this gen car is actually the seventh generation NASCAR race car. And there were times back in the late 90s and early 2000s when we were constantly changing the cars. And these drivers, if you're a professional race car driver, you're by God going to adapt, and you're going to learn to race with the equipment you've been given, and to become the best race car driver you can with the equipment you've been given. So I respect Denny's opinion, but I don't think that, a next gen driver is only going to be a next gen driver. You'll overcome, you'll adapt. But I know you talked to another driver this week who had kind of a different take on it.
Well, we talked to Kyle Busch, and Kyle Busch has talked about has mentioned that he's kind of struggled with adapting to the next gen car on some of the short tracks. And I think what it comes down to for me is, to Denny's point, the cars are significantly different. It's not so much the same difference as adapting from the Gen 4 to the Gen 5, where they're both similar stock cars set up to go fast on an oval. This car is very different from previous cars because it's set up to go fast on road courses, so it's very equally balanced. It's a lot bigger, a lot heavier, and it's just a general overall different setup. And you're seeing that on the short tracks where the aero is coming into play, when aero hasn't really been an issue on short tracks with previous generations of cars. So it is, I think to Hamlin's point, it is a pretty significant difference. And I think that's what's hurt some of the old-fashioned drivers, perhaps, like Kyle Busch, who's more used to driving the classic stock car on a short track. But like you said, that's what being a race car driver is learning how to adapt, even when it's a massive change. And some of these young kids will be used to driving this type of car, but if we get the old type back, their job is to adapt to it too.
And I know you, but and on a kind of a related note, you talked to Justin Allgaier too, which is the beauty of being a racetrack. You can just, if you need to talk to a driver, you go talk to him. And he kind of told you something different when it comes to the Xfinity series and their drivers.
Yeah, he told me that what we're seeing in the Cup Series, and it's sort of a product of the new car, I think a lot of drivers have said, which is a heavier stronger car and with less power, so you have to push a little bit harder on some of these restarts. We saw, for instance, I don't think the TV coverage covered this at all, but Austin Cindric was just booted out of the way on the last lap coming to the line. And that's sort of the product of the racing you're getting in the Cup Series right now. So Allgaier told me that they're just drivers driving way over their head in the Xfinity Series because they think that's what the kind of racing you need to be doing to win is. And I think looking at the Xfinity race, I think it had, 11 cautions? There's some merit to that. There were some gratuitous wrecks in the back of that pack. Caught up drivers like Deegan, for instance.
Yeah, and Haley did get caught up in something. And again, a lot of that stuff, it's not her fault. So we'll see. But we still have the short track problems, right? So as we transition out of the rants and move on here, just today, this is Tuesday, Elton Sawyer, NASCAR executive, said the sanctioning body is working daily to improve the short track product. And he quoted, he said, "We're working as hard as we can with Goodyear, and we need to work harder." And I agree with that. And obviously what we saw at Bristol is what they're thinking of and what they're going to. They don't want to go too far. But Owen also talked, like he said, to Kyle Busch, and he asked Kyle a couple of questions about the short track package and what he thought. And Owen referenced this, but here's Owen talking to Kyle Busch this weekend at Martinsville.
Owen Johnson, CupScene.com. You've been critical of the new short track package this year. Has it changed the racing at all from your perspective? And do you expect any bigger changes here at the shortest track yet for the package?
I didn't think we could make it worse, but by golly, we did. For me anyways, like maybe it's just because we don't have it quite figured out like others do, but I cannot follow anybody in front of me whatsoever. It doesn't matter if I'm in the bottom lane, the middle lane, the top lane. If there is a car in front of me, I am terrible, really bad. I will say the only positive to it is that you can slide the back of the car around a little bit more and not crash. But the front ends are just ungodly, not working.
What would you like to see NASCAR do in terms of development direction?
It doesn't matter because they're not going to do it, so it don't matter. I'm not going to paint myself in a bad spot to get in trouble.
And of course, not long after, Owen talked to Ryan Blaney and got his take on the short track issues.
We've got the new short track package this year. Has it changed the racing at all from your perspective? And do you expect any bigger changes at the shortest track yet for the package?
Yeah, I mean, we tried it a couple times here, and Phoenix, I didn't really think it made much of a difference. Richmond, it might have made a little bit of a difference, I felt like more than Phoenix. But here I feel like it's going to be the most, or the place where you're going to see like the smallest amount of change because you're going slow here. Like this is the slowest place we've gone from Phoenix to Richmond. So I feel like it's not going to really be much of a change. I hope it is. I mean, I hope it's like you can run on 2 feet from someone's bumper and not have any effects. But the realist in me is like, okay, it might not be much of a change, but it could be. I don't know. But I think it's a path to where hopefully we continue to go down from the tires to the aero side of the car. Hopefully we continue to fix that. I mean, it's not an overnight fix. It's a tough thing to try to figure out. I mean, you can wind tunnel and test that stuff, what NASCAR does all the time, but until you actually get it on the racetrack and get it running, you don't really know. And, we have some aero tests every now and then through the year, but it is hard to kind of relay that stuff. It's like talking about sim work compared to at the racetrack, kind of what it does to your setup. So it is hard to kind of flesh those things out. But I think it's a small step in the right direction. Just got to continue to try to beat down that path.
I also talked to a couple more drivers, sort of more one-on-one in the media center about their views. So I put together a story on that with about 6 drivers' opinions on cupscene.com. So check that out. Also
your Twitter feed. We got to get you on the Twitter feed. You gained a lot of followers this weekend, and all that is on his Twitter feed. And I will post that in the comments section here so you can follow him. Go to cupscene.com. Trust me, this young man did a lot, was all over the track this weekend, talked to a lot of drivers, got a lot of great feedback. Owen, I can't thank you enough for your hard work. You did everything, and I just kind of sat back and was your admin assistant this weekend. So I really, really appreciate it, buddy. And of course you got to get back to law school now because that's what you're studying, English law, and we got to get you back to law school. And I still hold you. You did your assignment this weekend. You got the Martinsville hot dog. Now your next assignment is going to be going to do a NASCAR watch party at a pub in London. All right. That's your next assignment. And I actually have somebody this weekend I'm going to talk to that's going to help you with your assignment. Cross my fingers and hope to die. It's going to help you with your assignment, and we're going to get it done. So that's your next assignment.
No better way to wrap up the exams, I think.
Yes. All right. Let me talk about something else that's kind of bugging me, and that's another week of cliches. We had it coming in to Las Vegas, right? We had it coming into, we were talking rolling the dice and taking a gamble and all that junk. Get ready to hear this weekend. Everything is bigger in Texas. Well, guess what? Not everything is bigger in Texas. As a matter of fact, Alaska's a bigger state. I don't know if you knew that, but we're coming to a 1.5-mile track, the second one of the season after Vegas. I thought Vegas put on a good race, and now we're going back to, we're going to Texas to another 1.5-mile track, which is the meat of the schedule. It was repaved in 2018. The drivers seem to think that maybe it's seasoned out, and hopefully it's going to provide some great racing. Also, Texas is back to its traditional spring date after spending a year in the fall, so we'll see that. What are your thoughts, Owen, as we head to Texas?
Well, I think the big thing is it's crazy at this point of the season that we're only at the second mile and a half, and I think it's going to be a big test for some of the cars. We saw a lot of parity last time we went to a mile and a half. I think of the top 6, there were 2 Fords, 2 Toyotas, 2 Chevys, which is what you want to see, I think. And we've had some time for the Fords, especially, I think, to develop and be faster at the short tracks. I wonder if they'll be any faster on the mile and a halves. So we'll see how the manufacturer advantage plays out, which is what I'm really looking forward to. But Texas is a track that's really hard to pass. Ross Chastain especially was saying he likes to celebrate in the car when he makes a pass physically because it's just so challenging. It plays with the repave very differently than any other mile and a half. Very unique track. And I think it's going to be a unique challenge for some of the drivers. We'll see who can rise to the occasion.
Who do you think's who's your pick for winning?
Well, I think someone who has risen to the occasion the last couple times we've gone to Texas is Ryan Blaney, who has one of the best average finishes in the last couple of races of any active driver. And I think Blaney has shown consistent speed this year. Fallen off a little bit in the last couple of races, but for the most part, he's been the strongest Ford driver. And I think I've got my eye on the Fords. I think they've shown some significant improvement, and I think Blaney's the Ford to pick.
You know who I think it's going to be this weekend, and this is kind of a long shot in a way, but he's not, is Bubba Wallace. And I'll tell you why. He was fourth at Martinsville. He was catching Chase Elliott there towards the end. He almost spoiled the Hendrick party. But one of the things he said post-race was the fact that he's understanding now that if he puts in the effort, he's getting the results. And I think he really proved that this weekend. So, you know what? I'm looking for Bubba Wallace or 23, or Tyler Reddick, any one of the 2311 team to get up there. But that's my pick. That's Bubba Wallace is going to be my pick for this weekend. So we'll see. We'll talk next week. You got your preview coming up this week. People can look for that on cupscene.com. And you'll have to justify your Ryan Blaney. That's your assignment for this week.
Okay.
Justify the Ryan Blaney because Fords haven't won this season. Okay. So we got to get a Ford to victory lane. And
I've got the stats on my side though.
Stats are on your side. We'll see. But I'll tell you this, we know everything's not bigger in Texas. That's for sure. Bigger in Alaska. All right. Will we forget the short track woes? Will we have some great racing? Could we have another Atlanta? We'll see. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, Owen, you won't have hot dogs for dinner tonight.
I think anything but a hot dog.
All right, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to Speed Talk Live. For questions or just to tell us how bad our production is or to leave other feedback, leave us a comment below. For all the latest NASCAR news, visit www.cupscene.com. Until next time, peace out and let's go racing.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.